You open your eyes in the morning, you reach for your device, and before 5 minutes pass, you've already encountered 3 clips yelling at you. Alert, permanent residents facing uncertainty. Recent policy could impact your immigration standing. See this before time runs out. And suddenly, before you've even enjoyed your coffee, your pulse is pounding, your palms are damp, and you're questioning whether you still belong in this nation. Let me pause you right here. My name is Josh Martin, and welcome back to the U.S. Guide, the platform where we filter out the chaos, avoid the panic-driven content, and deliver you only the facts. Today's episode is designed for every single permanent resident who has been stressed because of what they're viewing on digital platforms. If that describes you, I need you to remain with me for the coming few minutes, because what I'm going to explain to you could truly transform the way you understand your circumstances. And even more importantly, it could restore your sense of calm. Here's what's occurring at this moment. Every single day, a new clip emerges, a new title appears, a new urgent alert informs you that everything is going to shift for immigrants in America. Some of these clips accumulate hundreds of thousands of views within hours. They're created to be intense. They're created to make you engage, to make you distribute, to make you feel like your options are disappearing. And I recognize why permanent residents are concerned. I truly do. The governmental atmosphere around immigration at this time is charged. There are presidential directives being issued. There are new suggestions being presented in Congress. And yes, enforcement throughout the nation has increased substantially. None of that is fabricated. None of that is something I'm going to ignore. But here is the essential distinction between what you're viewing on digital platforms and what is genuinely occurring in actual life right now as it relates specifically to you as a permanent resident. Most of what you're viewing is either a suggestion that was never approved, a proposal that ended in discussion the same week it was presented, a presidential directive that's been stopped by the courts, or a news item that's been exaggerated beyond recognition to gain clicks. And the creators producing those clips, many of them are not immigration lawyers. Many of them are not even remotely qualified to inform you what the law states. They're pursuing engagement, they're pursuing followers, and regrettably, they're doing it at the expense of your mental health and your sense of stability. So today, I want to do something different. I want to guide you through exactly how immigration law genuinely works, what protections you genuinely have as a permanent resident, and how to distinguish the difference between something that matters and something that doesn't. By the conclusion of this episode, my objective is simple. I want you to feel knowledgeable, confident, and peaceful. Let's begin. Part 1. Understanding how immigration law genuinely changes and why it's not as straightforward as a headline. One of the biggest misunderstandings that drives all of this concern is the idea that immigration law can shift overnight. That one morning you retire with full rights as a permanent resident, and by the time you awaken, everything is different. That is not how the United States legislative system works. Not even close. For a new immigration law to genuinely take effect in this country, it has to go through a very specific, very intentional, and often very lengthy process. First, a proposal has to be written and formally presented in either the House of Representatives or the Senate. That presentation is where you get your initial headline. Senator presents proposal that would remove permanent residency from immigrants accused with offenses. Sounds frightening, right? But here's what the headline doesn't inform you. The fact that a proposal has been presented means almost nothing at this stage. The United States Congress presents thousands of proposals every single session, and the overwhelming majority of them never go anywhere. After a proposal is presented, it gets referred to a committee. That committee has to debate it, modify it, and vote on whether it even deserves a full floor vote. Most proposals never make it past committee. They just sit there, they accumulate dust, they end quietly, and nobody makes a clip about that part. But let's say the proposal does make it out of committee. It then has to go to a full vote in the House of Representatives. If it passes the House, it goes to the Senate, where the entire process essentially starts over again. Committee review, debate, modifications, and a floor vote. Both the House version and the Senate version of the proposal have to be reconciled into one unified piece of legislation. And then, finally, that reconciled proposal goes to the president's desk to be signed into law. That entire process from presentation to presidential signature routinely takes months. Often it takes years. Sometimes for genuinely controversial legislation, it takes decades. And in many cases, most cases actually, the proposal never becomes law at all. Let me give you a concrete example so you can see exactly how this plays out in the real world. Think about birthright citizenship. This has been one of the most discussed immigration topics over the past couple of years. There have been suggestions, presidential directives, court challenges, headlines upon headlines upon headlines. And yet, as of right now, birthright citizenship, the principle that anyone born on American soil is an American citizen, remains the law of the land. It has not changed. Despite years of political noise, despite presidential action, despite the worry that was generated, the law has not changed because the courts have stepped in repeatedly to slow or stop those changes. Now, let's bring it closer to home for permanent residents specifically. A few months ago, you may have seen an explosion of clips about a suggested proposal that would allow the government to revoke a permanent residency from someone who had been merely accused with an offense. Not convicted, not found guilty in a court of law, just accused. The clips were everywhere. Permanent residents beware. You could lose everything over an accusation. Concern ensued. Here's what actually happened. A senator presented that proposal. That's it. It was presented and then it went absolutely nowhere. It didn't pass committee. It didn't get a floor vote. It didn't pass the House or the Senate. It is not law. It never came close to becoming law. But the clips that warned you about it, those are still circulating. People are still sharing them. And new viewers are still watching them and thinking this happened when it absolutely did not. This is the pattern you need to recognize. Presentation of a proposal equals headlines, concern, and viral clips. The proposal quietly ending somewhere in the legislative process equals silence. The algorithm rewards the worry. It never rewards the correction. Part 2. Presidential directives. Powerful, but not permanent. Now, I want to be fair here because there is one mechanism through which immigration policy can change more quickly than the full legislative process. Presidential directives. The President of the United States has the authority to issue presidential directives, which are essentially instructions that instruct federal agencies on how to enforce or interpret existing laws. In the context of immigration, presidential directives can have real and immediate consequences. They can affect which populations are prioritized for enforcement, what criteria immigration officers use when making decisions, how certain visa categories are processed, and more. And yes, over the past several years, under administrations of both parties, we have seen presidential directives that impacted immigrants, including permanent residents. So this is not nothing. I want to be clear about that. But here's what's equally important to understand. Presidential directives are not permanent changes to immigration law. They are not the same as legislation passed by Congress. And historically, the more sweeping and aggressive a presidential directive is, especially when it affects large numbers of people, the more likely it is to be challenged in federal court. We've seen this play out time and time again. A presidential directive gets signed. Civil liberties organizations and immigration advocacy groups immediately go to court. A federal judge issues a temporary restraining order blocking the policy while the legal challenge proceeds, and the presidential directive never fully takes effect, or it gets significantly narrowed before it does. This is not a partisan observation. It happened under Democratic administrations. It happened under Republican administrations. The courts are a check on presidential power, and they exercise that check regularly when it comes to immigration. So when you see a clip telling you that a new presidential directive is going to destroy your rights as a permanent resident, take a breath. Ask yourself, has this been implemented yet? Is it being challenged in court? What are actual immigration lawyers saying about it? Often the answer is that the policy is tied up in litigation, that enforcement is inconsistent, or that the practical impact on lawfully present permanent residents is far more limited than the headline suggests. Part 3. Your rights as a permanent resident. These are real and they are strong. Let's talk about something that almost never makes it into those viral worry clips. Your actual rights as a permanent resident. Because here's the thing, those rights are significant. They've been built up and reinforced over decades of immigration law, constitutional law, and court precedent. They don't disappear because of a single proposal presentation or a social media post. First, and most importantly, you cannot be removed without due process. This is a constitutional protection. It is not something that can be removed by presidential directive or even by a simple piece of legislation. If the government wants to remove a permanent resident from the United States, they have to go through the immigration court system. That means you have the right to appear before an immigration judge. You have the right to present evidence on your behalf. You have the right to challenge the government's case against you. You have the right to appeal a decision that goes against you. This process is not quick. It is not simple. And it absolutely cannot be bypassed by an immigration officer at the airport or on the street, simply deciding they want to take your permanent residency away from you. That brings me to a critically important point that I want you to remember and share with every permanent resident you know. If you are ever in a situation where an immigration officer is pressuring you to sign documents, to surrender your permanent residency, or to voluntarily agree to removal, do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything without speaking to an immigration lawyer first. Your permanent residency cannot be taken from you unless you sign it away, or unless an immigration judge orders its revocation after a proper hearing. Those are the rules. An officer at a checkpoint, a border agent at the airport, a federal agent showing up at your door. None of them have the unilateral authority to strip you of your permanent residency on the spot. Now, does this mean you should be careless? Absolutely not. There are things that can put your permanent residency status at risk, and I want to be honest with you about those as well. Extended absences from the United States, particularly leaving the country for more than 6 months and certainly for more than a year, can raise questions about whether you have abandoned your permanent residence. Criminal convictions, particularly for certain categories of offenses, can create serious immigration consequences. And there are other specific circumstances that a qualified immigration lawyer can walk you through. But the key word there is can create consequences. Not will automatically result in losing your permanent residency overnight with no warning and no recourse. The law still requires process. The law still requires hearings. The law still requires a judge. Part 4. How to actually evaluate immigration news going forward. I want to give you a practical framework, something you can use every single time you see one of those scary clips or alarming headlines. A simple set of questions that will help you quickly separate the genuine concerns from the manufactured concern. Question 1, is this a suggestion or a law? If someone is reporting on a proposal that was presented or an idea that a politician floated in a speech, that is not law. That is a suggestion. Suggestions fail all the time. Until something passes both chambers of Congress and is signed by the President, it is not law and it does not affect you. Question 2. If it is a law or a presidential directive, has it been implemented yet? Even when something does become law or policy, implementation takes time. Agencies need to write regulations. Guidance needs to be issued, and very often litigation delays implementation for months or even years. Question 3. Is it being challenged in court? As I mentioned earlier, major immigration policies are routinely challenged in federal court, and courts frequently issue injunctions that prevent those policies from being enforced while the challenge proceeds. Check whether a legal challenge has been filed. Often, you'll find that the policy you're worried about is currently blocked. Question 4. Who is reporting on this, and are they qualified? Is the person making this clip an immigration lawyer? Do they have expertise in this specific area of law, or are they a content creator chasing viral moments? This matters enormously. Immigration law is incredibly complex, and nuance is everything. A well-intentioned non-expert can cause just as much concern as someone acting in bad faith. Question 5. What are actual immigration lawyers saying when there is a genuine development that permanent residents need to pay attention to? Qualified immigration lawyers will be talking about it. If you can't find reputable lawyers weighing in on the specific concern, that itself is a signal that it may not be as serious as it's being made out to be. Part 5. What you should actually be focused on. Rather than spending your energy on concern, here's where your energy is genuinely well spent as a permanent resident in the current environment. Know your travel rules. This is a simple one, but it catches people off guard. As a permanent resident, be mindful of how long you stay outside the United States. Extended absences can create complications. If you need to travel for an extended period, talk to an immigration lawyer beforehand. Stay out of legal trouble. This sounds obvious, but it's worth saying clearly. Criminal convictions, even for offenses that might seem minor, can have serious immigration consequences under current law. Be aware of this. Keep your documents in order. Make sure your permanent residency is current, that you have all the documentation of your lawful status, and that you know where everything is. Consider naturalization if you're eligible. If you've held your permanent residency for the required period and you meet the eligibility requirements for U.S. citizenship, seriously consider starting that process. Citizenship is the strongest possible protection against removal concerns, and it eliminates the category of risk that's driving most of the anxiety you're seeing. And perhaps most importantly, build a relationship with a qualified immigration lawyer. Not so that you can text them in a concern every time a new clip goes viral, but so that when something genuinely significant happens, you have a trusted professional you can turn to for a measured, accurate assessment. If there's one thing I want you to walk away from this episode knowing, it's this: you are not powerless and you are not unprotected. The headlines are designed to make you feel otherwise because worry drives engagement. But the law, for all its complexity and imperfection, still provides meaningful protections for permanent residents. Those protections don't evaporate because of a tweet or a viral clip. Stay informed, stay calm, and stay smart about where you get your information. That's the real shield against the noise. If this episode helped you, please do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this message. Subscribe to the U.S. Guide so you never miss a new episode, and turn on notifications because we cover real immigration developments as they happen without the sensationalism. Drop a comment below and tell me what's the most alarming immigration headline or clip you've seen recently. I read every comment, and your question might end up being the subject of our next episode. And if you personally have immigration questions, if you're going through a permanent residency process, renewing your status, dealing with a complicated situation, or simply want to understand your rights better, reach out. The link in the description connects you directly with qualified help. Until next time, this is the U.S. Guide. Take a breath. You've got this. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next.